G'day and welcome to another episode of Kiwi Car Life. And the Volkswagen Golf R32 has long been a fun and fantastic sounding hot hatchback. One of the very few to come with a 6-cylinder engine, up there with the Alfa Romeo 147 GTA and my favourite, the BMW 130i. However, as you would have seen from the title, the owner of this one decided that 184 measly kilowatts from the 3.2 litre VR6 was nowhere near enough, and so he installed one of the largest turbochargers I've ever seen in my life onto the VR6, and today we're going to see what a nearly 400 kilowatt or 550 horsepower turbocharged Golf R32 is like. Exterior styling on this one is absolutely fantastic. While the Mark IV GTI was certainly the worst GTI ever made, the R32, especially in the two-door shape like this, I reckon was one of the best looking Golfs they ever made. This one with the Aussie racing wheels, lowered on coilovers with the big Porsche brakes on it, because of course Volkswagen, Porsche, Audi parts are generally all interchangeable, and the big twin exhaust around the back. It's an absolutely fantastic looking car. But at the same time, it does definitely have a sleeper appearance to it, which hides the nuclear bomb that's hiding under the bonnet. And that nuclear bomb is, or was, a 3.2 litre VR6 engine. From factory, these make right around 300 newton meters and 184 kilowatt. In my mind, a reasonable and quite fun amount of power. They're revved to nearly 7,000 RPM, make a fantastic warbly VR6 noise in the process, and paired up with a close ratio 6-speed manual transmission with power going through a Haldex 4-wheel drive, means that they handle well, they put power down beautifully, and of course they sound fantastic. However, as I mentioned, the owner decided that he wanted quite a bit more, and so he installed a massive turbocharger to the back of the engine. Naturally, it's had all of the coil packs upgraded. The entire fuel system is new, with all new injectors, new fuel rail, new high pressure fuel pumps, and now has a catch can and a custom dyno tune with an aftermarket ECU to make all of that work. And instead of the factory 184 kilowatt that it had, it now has 400 kilowatt, or around 550 horsepower and 690 newton meters of torque. To put that in perspective, this engine makes more power than an F10 M5's 4.4 litre twin turbocharged V8. And for that reason, I am quite pleased that the 4-wheel drive system is still intact, because if this thing was just 2-wheel drive, it would be an absolute death trap. The interior has remained pretty much unchanged, much like the exterior of the car. The steering wheel looks and feels fantastic. It's a nice big fat chunky steering wheel with 10 and 2 grips up here. All of the switchgear inside feels quite nice. It even has heated seats. Speaking of the seats, these are probably some of the most aggressive bolsters I've ever seen. They're so big that even my elbows can barely even fit past them. Transmission feels quite good actually. It feels like this one might have had the bushings redone at some point. Fairly long throws front to back, but not too bad side to side. And it's pretty well equipped too. As I mentioned, it has heated seats. It's got a 6-CD stacker in here, fully automatic climate control and the like, and the back seats have a reasonable amount of room as well. Here we are driving the turbocharged Golf R32, and the cool thing about it actually is that, to my surprise, we're just sort of cruising around normally, yeah, you can hear and tell that it has an enormous turbocharger up there, but the throttle responds just as well as it did before. It's predictable. The gearbox and clutch are all still easy to use, and you can still enjoy it on a fun back road like this without having to use the ridiculous amount of power that it has available. But of course, the monstrous power is there should you decide that you want to use it. Yeah, that's 400 kilowatt if ever I've seen it. And I was surprised actually, the boost comes on like surprisingly quickly actually. Obviously it's got a lot of boost to build, so it's not just going to hit full boost like immediately, but you don't have to work that hard for the power. Unlike, for instance, the turbocharged 3-litre Legacy that I reviewed a little while ago. That thing, all the power was right at the top end, whereas this is actually quite nice, where the power is there in the mid-range. But obviously, when you get into the meat of the power at like 4,000 RPM, which is right where you want it, then This thing is just absolutely ridiculous. I expected this to be like a completely unusable car, especially on a road like this, with corners and, you know, not exactly enormous straights. But to my surprise, it's actually quite fun. I'm a little bit aware that the people around probably won't be too happy with the immense racket that this car makes. You can surprisingly use 400 kilowatt. Maybe I'm changing. I remember a long time ago, or even not that long ago to be honest, if I reviewed something like this, I would have come out of the review going, it's too much power, you can't use it, it's too loud, I don't like it. But I don't know, maybe I'm changing in something with a really well dialed in 400 kilowatt like this, going through a four-wheel drive system where you're not really worried about traction loss, where you can surprisingly use the power, and it's fairly confidence inspiring. Oi, brakes are working hard. Then, you know, even on a road like this is probably one of the most well dialed big horsepower cars that I've actually driven. And the rest of the car is great too. Steering feel is fantastic. Brakes respond really well, they're confidence inspiring. Pedal box, as you're hearing, is placed perfectly for heel towing. Gearbox feels really nice. Super easy to find all of the gears. And I love that VR6 sound, even without the turbo. It just sounds really good. But one thing's for sure, there's absolutely no denying that this thing is like scary fast, eh? Obviously the big downside with this is that you're going to have to spend an absolute fortune to put it together. But when you do, and I know that a few other people have, this is up there with, you know, RBs, 1JZs for certainly power anyway, but it's in a nice modern European car that you can happily cruise around, but it still makes absolutely unbelievably stupid levels of power. That, oh my god, who needs this? This is definitely one of the most well sorted, fantastic sounding, and just all around really well put together modified cars that I think I've ever driven. And in many ways, again, kind of like with the R8, because it's four-wheel drive, because it's got a really good turbo and a really good tune on it, it makes 400 kilowatt, which is a ridiculous amount of power, not necessarily easy, but certainly a bit more accessible. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this look at probably the most powerful car I've ever reviewed. Oh man alive, that's ridiculous. And I look forward to seeing you again next time.